Welcome to the happiest committee in the Nevada State Legislature, the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblyman Nguyen. Assemblywoman Taylor. Assemblywoman Thomas. Chair Torres.
Welcome to those joining us here in the packed audience here in Carson City, those joining us by video conference in Las Vegas, and those listening over the internet. Welcome to the happiest committee in the Nevada State Legislature, where we are ready to make some magic happen. We are going to go ahead and just continue with some housekeeping items. As a couple of reminders, especially for those joining us here in Las Vegas, in Carson City, please remember to silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you are not speaking to minimize any background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you're done speaking. Handouts should have already been provided to our committee staff. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting. Just remember, just a little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down. Committee members, we will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. Just as a note to the committee members, we will be going a little bit out of order today. We're going to go ahead and start with AB 378, then we'll do AB 10, and lastly, we will go on to the agenda. For those joining us in Las Vegas, feel free to turn off your cameras if you'd like for the moment, and we will be moving on to, I apologize, for those joining us via Zoom, feel free to turn off your cameras for now, and then we will go ahead and go, I'll let you know when we are ready. And at this time, we'll go ahead and open up the hearing on AB 378. Which, what is it? Where's that? AB 378, which revises provisions governing collective bargaining. Speaker Yeager, when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Steve Yeager for the record. I represent Assembly District 9, and as many of you know, Mr. Carter Bundy is with me at the table representing AFSCME. Thank you for hearing Assembly Bill 378 this morning. I'm going to be as brief as possible about what this bill does. This bill tries to solve an issue that has arisen with state collective bargaining. For those of you who were not here, the state instituted collective bargaining for state workers in the 2019 legislative session. That was an effort spearheaded by Senator David Parks, and I will tell you, I was not on either of the committees that heard that bill, obviously supported it. So the 2021, leading up to the 2021 session was the first time that our state workers have had the right to collectively bargain. And I don't need to go into sort of all the details, but what happened is we learned that the timeframes set out in the law didn't necessarily lend itself to the legislature being able to fund collective bargaining agreements and or arbitration awards. Just by way of background, in case it's not obvious, collective bargaining on the state side is maybe a little different than other types of collective bargaining because the bargaining happens with the executive branch, but it's up to the legislature to actually fund the agreement. The executive obviously does not have the ability to do that on his or her own. And so what happened in the last I guess it was during the last legislative session, negotiations were ongoing with a couple different bargaining units that ultimately led to arbitration, where those bargaining units were successful, but that arbitration decision came out after the 2021 legislative session. So we had already closed our budgets, and we tried to figure out, was there a way that we could make good on these arbitration awards in the interim? And the long and short of it is, without a special session, there was not a way to effectuate those arbitration awards. We looked at if we could do it through the interim finance committee, but that was not an option. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. We want to make sure that bargaining is completed in whatever fashion that means before the end of the legislative session, so we as a legislature can decide whether to fund those. So to kind of break down the bill, you should all have a document in front of you. It's called the AB 378 timeline. And the top part of the timeline is the current process as envisioned, as in statute today. There's a lot of information there. I think what you have to know is this just is not realistic. There's really no way you can get to an arbitration decision by March 15th. And that's because if you back up a few items, you see there's mediation, and when you're mediating, you got to pick a mediator. And then if mediation doesn't work, you've got an arbitrator selection process that takes time, and then you've got to get the arbitration scheduled. So even though this says by March 15th, if everyone is doing everything possible, negotiating in good faith, this timeline just doesn't work given the process. So what we tried to look at was, can we change the process in the law to make sure that we have some finality before the legislative session ends? And so what you have in front of you is AB 378. There is a conceptual amendment that's relatively brief because when the bill came out, we said, well, we don't think this really works either to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And really the main part of the amendment and this concept is to select a mediator, an arbitrator at the beginning of the process, before you might even need them, because that is where a lot of time gets taken up. So in the conceptual amendment, and we'll rely on our lawyers at LCB to figure out how to draft that, but the last bullet point on the amendment is say, let's go ahead and get those people pre-selected. So when mediation becomes necessary, we already have a mediator in place. When arbitration becomes necessary, we already have an arbitrator in place. So because of that, I think you're going to see a lot of contraction of unnecessary time in the timeline that exists now. And so we moved back some of the other dates, really for this body's edification. Having an arbitration decision by March 5th is going to be really good, right? Because that's like a month ago, and we are just starting to work on closing budgets right now. So we think that this is a solution that will work. We have reached out to folks. I won't speak for them, but we ran this by the executive branch folks who are involved in negotiation. I think they are here hopefully in a neutral position, but I think believed this does work for all sides involved. So really that is the long and short of it. I'm going to leave it there because I'm not the expert when it comes to actually negotiating these things. I have an expert next to me. And so with your permission, Madam Chair, would invite Mr. Bundy to provide any additional comments about things that I missed or how this solves the problem we're trying to solve.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Carter Bundy with AFSCME. I don't think I could have summarized that any better and certainly not any shorter than the speaker did. So I'm here for any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? I have Assemblyman Thomas and Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblyman Thomas.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Speaker, for this bill. I think it's necessary, especially when we're trying to a collective bargain. But my question has to do with when you mention mediators, thank you, mediators in place. All right, so both sides actually have to have an agreement on this mediator, right? So do you have a list, and how long is that list? You know, because I when you made that comment, I wasn't sure if you're just saying one person, because both sides have to agree.
Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Thomas Carter
Feel
Bundy.
free to go directly to the member.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Thomas Carter Bundy with AFSCME for the record. Actually, for mediation, it's just a matter of getting somebody from the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services. But for arbitrators, there's a whole strike process. They give you a list of 7 people, but of course it takes time to get that list. And then you go through what's called a strike process. So one side says, I don't want this person. The other side says, I don't want this. And eventually you're left with 1 out of those 7. One of the issues is also that by the time we're doing this in February of a session, and remember, especially for the arbitration piece, you're doing it really in late February or early March because you've gone through a lengthy mediation time frame that we think is probably a little bit too long. by the time you're doing this in March, it's entirely possible that some of these people won't be able to even hear an arbitration until April or May, and then that's when you really run out the clock and you're not able to fund not just compensation, but anything in the arbitration. It's a requirement of the collective bargaining law that anything requiring an appropriation has to be appropriated by the legislature. So we think that by having this pre-selected and knowing that people are available in that February window, it makes sure that we can get you, win, lose, or draw, however it comes out for us, that you at least know what's in the collective bargaining agreement and the arbitration by early March.
And thank you, Mr. Bundy. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate that clarification because I think it's necessary for us to understand the process. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair. My question kind of dovetails off of what you were just talking about. My concern is, how are we going to find a mediator or arbitrator that's willing to set aside that portion of time when we don't even know if they're going to be needed? Because hopefully, we won't need mediation or arbitration unless we're anticipating every single contract going to one of those, which I personally hope we don't have that. And if we're going to have them block off that time, whether we need it or not, or we, the state, then paying them for that time, whether we need it or not.
Madam Chair, through you to Assemblyman Hibbets. No, those are great questions. My understanding is that they don't get paid unless their services are retained. It might be that the director, the commissioner of EMRB can answer more directly about how to reserve time, but I think it is a thing that people get booked out in advance. I think there's enough work in the arbitration and mediation world that if they don't end up having to use this time, they can get picked up for something else, but certainly letting them know as soon as we do have an agreement would be part of the plan. But I don't believe there's any payment to them. There's no sort of you're on retainer kind of payment by the state, or we split 50-50 the fees for this, the union and the state. So I am hopeful, like you said, that most of the time we will reach agreement, but in the event that we do need to go to impasse, at least you, the legislature, will have the ability to decide whether to fund or not fund whatever comes out of the arbitration.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Bundy. Comment and question in my hat before this one, as in terms of the school board, that process can absolutely take a very long period of time. So it just makes sense to condense it so that deadline is there. I certainly get that. And fully support this. My question is, so is the intention then to have 2-year agreements? Since we're talking about every other year, it seems as though, but I just want that to be clarified.
Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Taylor. Yes, that's exactly right. It's actually, this is unusual compared to other collective bargaining situations. The specific timeline for state employee collective bargaining is prescribed in what was Senate Bill 135 and now NRS 288 at 500 and following. So yes, every 2 years, because we know that things have to be funded by the legislature. But yes, there's a prescribed timeline.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Assemblywoman Duran.
Good morning, and thank you for this presentation. My question is that, from my understanding, so now it's going to be any arbitrations that were lost during that time, if it's, or is this just for the bargaining itself?
Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Duran. Carter Bundy, for the record, with AFSCME. This is prospective, and it just is a way to make sure that in the event that we can't reach agreement, the state and whatever union, it wouldn't just be AFSCME, but some of the other unions that represent state units, that we would essentially be able to complete the impasse procedure so that you then have the ability to fund, not fund, to do whatever you want. The legislature still retains all appropriation authority, but it would be so that you have a result, a final arbitrator's decision in a timely manner.
So my question, and I understand that, so if someone personally has an arbitration that you represent for a wrongful termination, is this going to be in that process too, or is this already allocated for that? That's, if you understand my question?
I did it again. Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Durant, that's a totally separate thing. Thank you for asking that. This is called contract arbitration. So this is just how you arbitrate what's in the contract. Grievance and disciplinary action arbitration is whenever it comes up. So nobody has to wait at all for that. It's unrelated. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I got it now, thanks.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and invite anyone. Let me see, one moment. All right, at this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support of AB 378.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, staff. My name is Rick McCann, Nevada Association of Public Safety Officers and a member of the Nevada Law Enforcement Coalition. I sit here in support of AB 378 with the amendments. The whole purpose of this bill, clearly, as you've already heard, is to get things done, to be both efficient and effective. What a concept in this building. Every 2 years, the state employees bargain their wages, benefits, and working conditions. In a lot of the private sectors and a lot of the other public sectors that are not state, we can do extended contracts. Can't do that in a state because you have to fund it every 2 years. So every 2 years we got to do this. And sometimes, sadly, the parties do not always agree. When they don't, they have to have a remedy to have their grievances heard, and that would be either the mediation and or the arbitration process. This bill addresses those time frames. Am I still on? Addresses those time frames. I might offer some continued or additional information regarding some of the questions that came up about having pre-selected mediators or arbitrators. Mediation, to me, as a litigator, mediation, I can do that fairly quickly. Arbitration, I got experts. Arbitration, I have witnesses. I need to get that done. I happen to have enough time to do it, but I also have to get it done quickly enough to where we can fund the darn thing if we can finally get this matter resolved through the arbitration process. So if we have Koenig, Hibbets, Taylor, Wynn, you guys happen to be the pre-selected arbitrators. And you've said, sure, I'll be happy to. Well, you may not know now that 2 years from now you might have to be called, admittedly. You're not on the call, you're not being paid. You're only going to be paid in the event that you are used and your services are needed. But rather than going to FMCS, the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services, or AAA, not the car stuff, but the American Arbitration Association, and having to go and get 7 names, and then you go through that and screw around for a while, and well, I can't get on the phone to do this for you a while, and I'm coming up to my time. 7 minutes, 6, 8, 9.
You're just a little bit over, but if you could just wrap up your testimony.
Sure, let me wrap it up. It's a good bill. Let's work session this puppy right now and get it out of here. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, committee members. My name is Brian Miller. I've worked for the state of Nevada for 23 years. I work at UNR. I started as a custodian and worked my way up to a carpenter. I also have the honor of being on the negotiating committee this year, and I am a proud member of AFSCME, and I hold the honor of Alt VP for Region 1 up here in Northern Nevada. Fun fact, I got to hang up Assemblywoman's Walk of Fame Wolfpack Way banner on a pole, so I know I seen you somewhere. So here we go. Sorry, first time I've ever done this. Collective bargaining has given state employees like myself and many others a voice and strength on the job. When state employees feel supported and heard, state services improve, worker well-being improves, morale improves, and workforce community grows stronger, as do the communities we are honored to serve and work for daily. AB 378 makes administrative changes to the arbitration process and state employee collective bargaining rights to fall better in line with the legislative schedule. AB 378 ensures that if we can't reach a negotiated agreement, we can get a fair arbitration in time for the legislature to fund any awards we win that year. As a state worker, a union leader, bargaining team member, making sure the collective bargaining process works for state workers and the legislature is important. I urge you to vote yes on AB 378. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's always great to have fellow Wolfpack fans in this room. Go Pack. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support of AB 378 here in Carson City? I don't see any. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 378?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 378, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Doobie, and I am a state of Nevada employee. I am a proud member of AFSCME Local 4041. I come today asking that you please support the bill, AB 378, and it's important. I had the pleasure of sitting on the bargaining team for AFSCME Local 4041 twice now. And as my as my brother Brian Miller had stated, making sure the collective bargaining process works for state workers and the legislature is really important. And so, thank you so much for your time. And again, I do hope that you vote yes for AB 378.
And ma'am, would you be able to spell your name for the record, please?
Sure, Stephanie, Stephanie, Doobie, Dube.
Thank you.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
All right, at this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 378. You can begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Dylan Keith with the Vegas Chamber. While we do appreciate the intent of this bill, and we are happy to work with the sponsor, we had not seen the amendment yet. We will look forward to that, but as written, we are in opposition, as we have had a long-standing opposition towards public employees and collective bargaining. We will look at the amendment, and we're happy to work with the sponsor in the future. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition to AB 378? I don't see any. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 378?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 378, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 378? I don't see any here in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 378?
Callers, if you'd like to testify neutral for AB 378, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair, or good morning, Chair, and members of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. My name is Bruce Snyder. I am the Commissioner of the state agency called the Government Employee Management Relations Board, which regulates labor relations between Nevada's governments and the organizations that represent their employees. I offer my comments in the neutral position. I have reviewed both the original bill and your proposed amendment. I want to particularly mention that I believe the most important part of the amendment is the pre-selection of both the mediator and the arbitrator. Waiting for the parties to select a mediator and or arbitrator only after impasse has been reached will not allow sufficient time, as most mediators and arbitrators are booked at least a couple months into the future. And that would be too late, as the legislature by then would have completed its work and adjourned. Back in 2019, when I provided technical support to the governor's office on Senate Bill 135, the original bill had December 1st as the start of negotiations. The start of collective bargaining was tied to the Economic Forum meeting in early December. However, many felt at the time that this would be too tight of a deadline, and thus one of the amendments to Senate Bill 135 moved the start of negotiations to November 1st. I note that the current bill moves the date even one additional month earlier to October 1st. Anything to give more breathing room for negotiations seems to be a good thing, and when coupled with the changes in the proposed amendment, particularly with the pre-selection process, the bill should allow the parties to conclude negotiations before the end of the legislative session, as envisioned in that timeline. I'd like to respond to a couple of the questions posed earlier. Arbitrators sometimes have a cancellation fee that if you don't cancel within 10 days or 30 days, it depends on the arbitrator, that you may have to pay a small cancellation fee for the process. This can probably be avoided by having the parties mutually agree to use a particular arbitrator over and over, with the promise that there would be additional work in the future where maybe the arbitrator would waive the cancellation fee. And I would also advise the parties that should the amendment be adopted, that the pre-selection should be more than just that the parties agree to select a particular arbitrator to be the arbitrator for that particular contract, but to also make sure that the parties reserve the dates necessary ahead of time for the arbitration. I am ready to answer any questions should you have any. Thank you.
We're just having all kinds of mic issues today. Members, any additional questions? It doesn't appear that there are any. Thank you so much for being present.
Okay, thank you.
BPS, is there anyone else online wishing to testify neutral to AB 378?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in neutral at this time.
All right, at this time, I'll go ahead and invite the bill sponsor for any closing remarks.
Steve Yeager for the record. Thank you, Chair and Committee, for hearing this bill. Thank you for taking me out of order as well, as I have some interim Finance Committee work left upstairs. I don't think the question is whether you support collective bargaining for state employees or not. I mean, that bill already passed, but the question I think in front of this committee is, do we want a process that actually works so the legislature can have a say in it, to avoid what we had the last interim where we're still trying to deal with the ramifications of 2 arbitration awards that came out post-session. So in my mind, this solves that problem. I appreciate this suggestion in neutral to reserve dates as well, and so that tells me we got a little bit of work to do yet on the amendment, but my hope is to make it practically perfect in every way for this committee. And so I hope to bring that back to you. And again, would be happy to answer any questions offline as always. Thank you so much, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you, Speaker Yeager. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 378. Any remarks, Councilman MacArthur? Okay, we're good. All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and open up the hearing on AB 10, which authorizes the designation of a tax increment area for certain transportation housing reinvestment purposes. And it is my understanding that we have a couple individuals on Zoom as well. When you're ready. And just as a reminder too, because we do have several people that are going to be presenting this bill, please remember to state your name every single time you speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the happiest committee in the legislature. For the record, Kelly Crompton, representing the city of Las Vegas. You've heard me say in this committee multiple times, the city of Las Vegas is landlocked. And so as we look for creative solutions to ensure growth and development within the city of Las Vegas, in front of you, you see AB 10 today. I would like to thank all of you that met with us over this week to hear some of the technical parts of the bill and talk about some of the solutions we have for the city. Today with me, I have Government Affairs Director Randy Robson, Director of Economic Development Ryan Smith on Zoom, Dorian Stonebarger, who is a policy advisor in Ward 1, also on Zoom. I have Marco Vallada, our technical expert in planning. He's our planning and project manager, and we did have Councilwoman Olivia Diaz with us. She had to run to another commitment, but we have a statement from her. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Vallada, and he can get us going.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Marco Vallada with the City of Las Vegas Department of Community Development's Comprehensive Planning Section. I'm Planning Project Manager and a lead for the city's 2050 Master Plan, and from its development between 2019 and the adoption by the Planning Commission and City Council in 2021. I oversee its subsequent implementation in various aspects. When we think about our favorite places across the country, we each have a different reason as to why we like them. Many have vibrancy or unique qualities that make them an attractive place to visit, or they're desirable places to live. And often, for the ones that we like the best, they have defining characteristics that make them desirable to live or work at, and sometimes both. Things to do, places to eat, shops to visit. And in our case, the Las Vegas Strip is globally known. Tahoe is famous for its blue water. Reno, biggest little city in the world. The city of Las Vegas has been working to create those places too, whether it's for Fremont Street, Fremont East, the Medical District in downtown, Symphony Park, and the Las Vegas Arts District. We would like to see more of these occur in our community, creating more memorable places for people to live and visit. Among our latest endeavors include the development of a new community in East Las Vegas at Desert Pines Golf Course, which could potentially include hundreds of new affordable single and multifamily homes, housing for seniors, neighborhood commercial, a community park and trail system, and a workforce training center, all of which would be complemented by bike, pedestrian, and transit-friendly streets and shaded by drought-tolerant trees. Planning for transformative enhancements such as these are among the motivating factors behind community planning efforts, many of which have been recently undertaken by Nevada's local governments, including master plans from City of Reno, Transform Clark County, and the City of Las Vegas' own 2050 plan. To give these types of development a major boost, we look at new and innovative best practices from around the country taken by other states such as Texas and Utah, and we believe Assembly Bill 10 will help create those great places in Nevada by allowing cities and counties to create places to go to work or go to school, that offer different types of housing and access to multiple modes of transportation, and allow reinvestment in small communities and neighborhood life. As we're developing our plan, a core concept really fit well, and to use a little planning lingo, we call it transit-oriented development, or TOD. For the city of Las Vegas especially, we have that limited land supply that Kelly mentioned, and over the next 30 years, since we have jurisdictions to the east and south of us and federal lands to the north and west, we have to be strategic about future growth. TOD allows us to grow up along major transportation corridors while offering housing along with a mix of commercial activity. And we're fortunate to receive a federal grant several years ago in partnership with RTC of Southern Nevada and Clark County to conduct a supplementary study to this development type on the Maryland Parkway corridor. Fortunately, the concepts and recommendations from that study are in line with Assembly Bill 10 and are applicable to other corridors which RTC is recommending major transportation projects such as Charleston Boulevard, Boulder Highway, and Sahara Avenue. We see examples of TOD all across the country, and in Utah's case, TOD has been successful around many of Salt Lake City's light rail and commuter rail lines, and they're looking to do way more along the entire Wasatch Front in the Salt Lake metro area. With strategic investment, underdeveloped corners around transit stops can be transformed to add those residential dwellings and provide community amenities. TOD has similarly grown in other states as well. In the Phoenix metro area, there's examples along Central Avenue and Main Street in the cities of Phoenix, and a system that connects Arizona State University with Tempe, Mesa, and Gilbert. In the right context and in appropriate places, if done, it can be done at a smaller scale, such as in Aurora, Colorado, where older strip malls have been replaced by housing, restaurants, and retail. To really catalyze this type of development, Utah and Texas were the first states in the country to enable legislation that allows for reinvestment in housing and transportation corridors along designated corridors and facilities. And the success of that can be seen using existing tried and true financing programs, one known as tax increment financing. Assembly Bill 10 would be similar to Texas and Utah by amending NRS Chapter 278C, which has already been in existence, but does not allow for specific housing or transportation uses. Like those other states, this legislation would be flexible and aligned with community planning efforts to invest in locations that were appropriate for residential development and transportation improvements. It also encourages intergovernmental collaboration, oftentimes necessary to have partnering entities, a regional transportation commission, or an NSHE institution on board to plan and coordinate. And this bill would allow for those cooperative agreements to take place. I'll turn things over now to Ryan Smith to talk a little bit more about tax increment financing.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ryan Smith. I'm the Director of Economic and Urban Development for the city. I'm going to talk a little about tax increment financing and how it works. So basically, in the chart you see to the right, in this bill, we would set a base year. That base year is the total amount of assessed value for those properties that are within the zone that's ultimately created through a resolution to the city. That zone, I believe there is a contemplated amendment that would be the previous fiscal year, the previous year to when the zone was created. After that, as the properties continue to appreciate, the investments are coming in from a transportation perspective because we know it's a transportation corridor. The zone would then collect that incremental tax, X a few of the taxes that are excluded from being able to be collected, all to then be reinvested into the eligible projects, affordable housing, or the other definitions of the transportation eligible projects. That would then go to those projects to basically incentivize what we're looking for. A lot of times, what we see in the valley is affordable housing is centralized in areas like distressed census tracts, or places where land valuations are low. And that's done because it's really hard to pencil an affordable housing project that's out maybe in some of the periphery, especially in Las Vegas, like the Northwest, Summerlin, places like this, where land, it's already built out, land valuations are high. You really need to do market rate housing if you're gonna have a successful project and you're a developer. So I think this bill really helps disperse affordable housing. And then also, with that being said, there's a need for connectivity. So even if somebody is working, whether it be, downtown Las Vegas or on the Strip or in Henderson, they want to live as close as possible. And they also need to be able to find a way to get to work. And so I think this really helps to solve those issues. And I think it also incentivizes the development community enough to maybe choose an affordable housing project instead of a market rate housing project. It will also create a lot of other, obviously, sales tax that goes to government entities, schools, police, things like that. And again, we'll really, I think, accelerate growth in some of those areas, but strategic growth so that it's really for the community and for everyone, and that everyone can afford to take advantage and live in some of these new areas. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Marco.
Thanks, Ryan. So with respect to locations of these zones, Assembly Bill 10 leaves those decisions to each local government. And in the city's case, specific land uses have already been determined along major transportation corridors through our 2050 plan, and those were previously identified. However, in each case, it will largely depend on community needs, community outreach, and whether there's a large, and that's applicable for whether it's a large town, a large city, or for a small town with a main street or a downtown to develop. To give an example, there are a number of possible applications throughout the state where those activity centers exist, such as around college campuses, newly developing transportation corridors, and other areas with potential for infill, similar to our opportunity in East Las Vegas. And with that, I'll turn things over to Randy to go over the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Good morning. My name is Randy Robinson, Director of Government Affairs, City of Las Vegas. I just want to check real quick if staff for Councilwoman Diaz happens to be on the Zoom. There she is. Madam Chair, would it be okay if Ms. Arlene has a statement to read on behalf of the Councilwoman?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Alvarez.
Hi, good morning, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and committee members are Arlene Alvarez for the record on behalf of Councilwoman Olivia Diaz for Ward 3 of the City of Las Vegas. So this is Councilwoman's statement. I want to first thank you for hearing this important bill. This policy was supported unanimously by the entire City Council for a number of reasons that I will highlight in a few minutes. But I wanted to start by sharing why I enthusiastically support this bill. Although it may seem to simply ask to capture funding for transit and housing, which we desperately need, Assembly Bill 10 is really about the hardworking residents that we both represent at the city at all levels of government and giving them access to opportunities. I'm here to speak to the dire need of enabling transportation and housing reinvestment zones. Increasingly, we want more environmentally friendly conscious residents, but it's hard to incentivize and promote the switch to public transportation options with very limited access, especially with equity in mind. According to the Department of Business and Industry annual housing report, the total affordable housing shortage was up the total affordable housing shortage in Southern Nevada is over 160,000 units. And of those, more than 55,000 of those are within the city of Las Vegas limits. As some of you on the committee may already know, I represent the far east side of the city of Las Vegas. So far east that if you don't have access to public transportation or a vehicle, you don't have access to employment, a grocery store, or easy access to higher ed opportunities. Like all of you, I work day in and day out to remove barriers like these for my constituents. Transportation is the only way to connect people to places and opportunity. Many of you know that prior to my role on the council, I was an educator and obviously still look at everything through that lens. I really think this policy could have a positive impact on the students and teachers alike. I can't tell you how many students have suffered and continue to suffer academically due to other factors at home, whether it's unstable housing or a parent's unstable access to employment because of lack of transportation, putting more stress on the whole family. These challenges our families are facing follow a child to school. It is no secret that it's increasingly difficult for teachers to afford a decent home or rent in Nevada, in turn making it more difficult to attract and retain teachers. Having a shortage of affordable housing while having an abundance of empty strip malls or old box stores should be looked at as an opportunity. Hence, transportation and housing reinvestment zones, which can transform unproductive areas into communities of productivity, ensuring that our families, all of our families, have access to an affordable home, a decent job, and educational opportunities. But we need a mechanism that will allow us to invest in them and remove barriers. I ask for your support in building the communities that our working families need. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. Madam Chair, if I may continue. Again, Randy Robinson, on behalf of the City of Las Vegas. My job this morning is to walk through the bill. If it's okay with the Chairwoman, I'm going to use the amendment that's been proposed. That'll make it a little bit easier. Speaking from the amendment, the first section, we add a few extra definitions to the existing statute in 278C, and specifically 278C.140. That's where it outlines allowable projects. It defines them as undertakings that cities and counties can for which cities and counties can use tax increment financing. Excuse me. In section 2, it just sort of defines what a tax increment, a transportation and housing reinvestment zone is. Talks about the boundaries. Most importantly, it says that area is designated by ordinance. So once this process starts, it will go through the standard ordinance process at the local city level. That means it's posted for across three different meetings, plenty of public input as we talk about not only just where the lines will be drawn for one of these zones, but also what will be included, what the goal of that project is. Marco mentioned community outreach and public input. That's a huge part of our ordinance process. So anytime we create one of these things, it will be done through that local city ordinance process. Now I'm on to page 3, section 3, subsection 3. This is where we outline what's included, the different undertakings, and we establish the base year. As you heard Mr. Volato mention, we've been working with the county. Clark County has will propose, I believe, what we think is a friendly amendment to help us establish the term base year, so that we're all working off the same page and able to collect the funding appropriately. Also in section 3, it ties it to a city's master plan. This isn't something that's done in a vacuum. It's done in conjunction with a master plan for that community. As you heard Mr. Volato say, we recently, well, I guess a couple of years ago, went through a long-term master plan process for our community to develop our 2050 master plan. So we took about a 30-year time horizon. And we included in those elements, or excuse me, in that plan, elements that would be captured within one of these transportation and housing reinvestment zones. Again, it's not something that's just kind of a one-off, just kind of a crazy idea one day. This is directly tied to our master plan. As you heard Mr. Volato say, one of the principles in our master plan, because we are landlocked in the city of Vegas, and so we have to start growing upwards, one of the principles our plan is based on is transit-oriented development. How do we improve our transportation system such that it's a reliable option for our citizens to get to wherever they need to go in their daily lives? One of the other important provisions in section 3, starting at the bottom of page 3 on the amendment, is where these transportation and housing reinvestment zones are located. Again, it ties back to that master plan, but you'll see in subsection 2, it says no further than a half a mile from a planned or constructed station terminal parking facility, fixed skyway or high-capacity transit system. Again, this is meant to take along a transportation corridor, identify those hubs where people naturally go to access public transportation, improve that facility, and improve that area such that people can choose to live there in housing that they can afford, with shops and amenities that they need to support their lifestyle, and a transportation system that can get them to work, to education, to entertainment, and all those other things. Section 5, subsection 5, section 4 on page 4 talks about how long these transportation and housing reinvestment zones can be for, not more than 30 years. And importantly, section 4 sub B says that these zones shall not include any property that is already within a redevelopment area. In talks with a number of other jurisdictions, that was a concern in the original bill, the way it was drafted. It unintentionally would have allowed for us to layer, I guess, one of these zones within an RDA, which would not make economic or financial sense either for the existing RDA or for the new zone. So we wanted to make it clear that these zones could not be included within an existing RDA. Finally, section 5, this is the fun part. This is how the funding all works out. It's got a lot of words there. I'm going to try to simplify it as much as I can. Section 5, and I'm on page 5 now. Section 5, subsection A, that portion says whatever taxes are being collected within that zone now, for all of those different taxing entities, that's what you get. That's what you're going to keep getting. So no change to the taxes that are already collected. Section B is where it says, subparagraph 1, the portion of the taxes levied each year in excess of that base amount. So that's the increment that we're talking about. The base is protected. We're going to take the increment and reinvest it into that area to help that area grow, with the exception of that property taxes imposed that go to public education. After working with many on the committee, particularly the chairwoman, she wanted to make sure that we protect our education system. We certainly agree with that. So that's the exception that you see there highlighted in green. And then subparagraph 2, again, that talks about the increment that we're using to reinvest. That's allowable to pay off bonds or other financing mechanisms that we may use to incentivize that development. Finally, subsection 2 there says that within the city, within the jurisdiction, there may be 2 or 3 different redevelopment areas, and then we might identify 2 or 3 of these different transportation and housing reinvestment zones. That subsection 2 says that we can allocate that revenue according to the redevelopment areas and the zones that we've identified. With that, Madam Chair, that concludes my walkthrough of the bill. Obviously, we'll be happy to answer any questions, but just to conclude, again, if it's okay with the chair, I'll go down to Ms. Dorian Stonebarger, who has a statement on behalf of Councilman Knutson.
Yeah, and if we could go through it quickly, please, or just have it submitted for the record, because I think we're about 20 minutes into the presentation, and I had asked for a 15-minute presentation, so maybe the highlights.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Torres and committee members, and the happiest committee members. My name is Dorian Stonebarger, Stonebarger. I am the Chief Policy Advisor to Mayor Pro Tem Brian Knutson, who could not attend today's hearing and asked me to speak on his behalf. I will submit this so that everything can be included. But I am just going to take a moment to summarize a couple of the key points that were made, and that's that this financing tool works and it's familiar to Nevadans. The ability in NRS 278 has given the local jurisdictions the opportunity to create some really neat projects, including the Smith Center and LaRuvo Center for Brain Health. However, we have not previously been able to invest in equal access to these developments by enabling this tool to work towards transportation. This does not raise taxes. It also does not take money away from currently funded services. Instead, those services receive funding from their selected tax base year first, and anything above that base can be used towards mixed-use developments and transportation. And again, mixed-use developments allow for the opportunity to collect sales tax, something that is not currently being done through empty box stores or empty land. So I thank you for considering the economic opportunity we have before us, but I would also like to encourage you to consider the effect that it has on the entire family that Councilwoman Diaz mentioned in her statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready to open it up for questions? Members, any questions? All right, I have quite a few. So Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing this before us. I appreciate your presentation this morning. Chair, with your allowance, I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. But I'll be quick, because I know we're behind. Has this ever been done before?
Through the chair to you, Assemblywoman. Not in Nevada. Marco Vallata for the record. Not in Nevada. I mean, we have the ability to do redevelopment. We have the ability to do tax increment financing, but not this specific type of zone like has been done in Utah or in Texas.
Okay, I know you showed those other states, so thank you. Let's see. One of the things that I just want to clarify is that you spoke a lot about the affordable housing, the need for affordable housing, and we certainly, everyone up here, we can all understand that. But because I don't live in Las Vegas, can you help me a little bit with the connection between this particular area where the zones would be versus those where you have a little bit, more of the other areas, in the affordable housing connection? Just help me see that connection a little bit more clearly, if you would.
Again, through the chair to you, Marco Vallata for the record. So this allows for essentially what could be done in a downtown area or a redevelopment agency outside of that, along a major corridor. And in Reno's case, I mean, that could be along Virginia Street, 4th Street or Prater Way, anywhere where there is a major hub where there could be that potential for affordable housing or market rate housing for that matter. And that's why we've included the definitions of affordable housing in there, whatever rate that is through the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
If I may, for clarity, Madam Chair, and this will be my last
Yes, please
piece.
go ahead.
So let me say what I think you're saying, okay? Is that, so you're looking at an area that's a corridor, it's a high-traffic area and so on, and to be able to enhance the transportation to that area will allow for what, for affordable housing?
Again, Marco Vallata for the record, it would allow for it to be developed. You could actually get those types of projects built on the parcels that are surrounding that transportation project, actually get them physically built and units installed.
And it would be affordable housing because?
If the local government chooses to go that route to actually define affordable housing, whether that's 60% of area median income, they could so choose. It allows the local governments to make that determination, or just housing in general, that market rate for sale.
And that's what you're looking to do in this case? Is make that, okay. Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Assemblyman Carter.
We discussed this a little bit yesterday, but I'm trying to understand, we've already got a crisis in the property tax revenue because of the tax cap having, especially on the east side of Las Vegas, some of the areas you talked about, where we have houses that have sold for $500,000-$600,000 that are only paying property tax on $150,000 and can only raise at 3%. So it's already a chronic problem, nearing crisis proportions on the reduced property tax revenue. How does this work with diverting some of that existing property tax revenue that's already way under what it should be?
Raya, do you want to take that question?
Sure, thanks, Randy. Madam Chair, through you. I think, so one good thing about this bill is that it maintains the baseline. So if there were ever any property tax reform approved through the legislature, it would reflect the baseline that's already existing to all the taxing authorities. This bill simply takes the increment, again, through the exemption, through certain of the taxes that Randy mentioned that are exempt, would go through those. But any further reform would also be reflected in this. And again, it kind of just repurposes some of that increment back into affordable housing and transportation, and that's what it does. So the best I can answer the question is it doesn't affect the baseline. If those properties are assessed today, it's going to collect what they get from today.
Thank you. Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for your presentation. I just had a couple quick questions. One, I know that these transportation and housing reinvestment zones, there's been a lot of talk about this, not just here in Las Vegas, of course, but across the country. I think recently I watched something on the PBS NewsHour that said that this is how the 21st century urban planning should really rotate really around these notions of creating affordable housing around transportation hubs. And I also think it's very important to realize here that there's a direct equation between the creation of mass transit in urban areas and an abatement of poverty, especially in areas like East Las Vegas, which I know from your presentation you'll be looking at bringing some of these reinvestment dollars to. So my question is one, I think you did answer it. It was an issue pertaining to the education funding. I know that education funding is tied to property taxes, and I did have some concerns there. If you can maybe just go a little bit deeper into that. And then number two, is this something that's going to exist in perpetuity, Or is there some sort of a sunsetting that you envision here, so we can maybe repurpose those fundings down the line for other purposes if we have met the goals that you're looking to achieve through this project? Thank you.
Assemblyman De Silva, Marco Vallata for the record, to the chair, to you. So with respect to your second question, the sunsetting, it's 30 years, and that's the cap on it. It's listed in the bill. So that would be the life of one of these zones. Randy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to Mr. De Silva. On page 5 of the amendment, I'm in section 5, subparagraph A, number 1. That's where you see the exemption. They're in green. That's where the language that would exempt or protect, or sometimes we call it hold harmless, the public education funding portion of the property tax that's collected. Is that sufficient?
Thank you. Assembly members, additional questions? Assemblyman Gonzalez?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. I wanted to know, where is the money currently going? Where is this tax? What are you currently doing with
that? Randy, again, Ryan Smith, Madam Chair, through you. Right now, the tax is just collected by the county and distributed to the proper taxing agencies that would normally get the tax. So it goes to the municipalities, it goes to the schools, again, just through the traditional property tax formulas.
Thank you. And then my next question is, do you know how many actual parcels of land you're looking at to redevelop? I know you have some listed, like the Maryland Corridor, UNR, UNLV, Nevada State campuses. How many actual parcels are we looking at to redevelop?
So, Madam Chair, Marco Vallata for the record, through you to Assemblywoman. Right now, I mean, there's that's up to each individual municipality. So in the city's case, I mean, we would determine that through ordinance. It could be one, it could be a grouping of several around an intersection, it could be a number along a corridor. It depends on every single case, and it would ultimately be up to the city council's discretion as to how many and where they would actually go.
Thank you. My next question is, so in terms of the Maryland Parkway corridor, I'm very familiar. It used to be my district. It's neighboring my district, right? You have many strip malls that may seem abandoned and or empty, but you also have tenants or businesses that are there, right? And so what happens to those folks that are currently there, and where will they go? And then do they get to come back? Like, what happens to those businesses and people that live currently there?
Yeah. Again, Marco Vallata, through the chair to you, we would have to look at every single zone in each individual case. And certainly this would be one where we wouldn't want to be purposefully displacing things that are already in existence. This would be one where a redevelopment opportunity is, appropriate. Like there's an abandoned strip mall, there aren't tenants there, there are vacancies, or it could be completely repurposed in the case of Desert Pines. That's often what really makes these projects attractive, is that there's just not something that's really working there now. There's something that's actually wrong, and we wouldn't purposefully go in and take something that's actually working and disrupt it.
Thank you. I guess, that is one of my concerns is on the outside, it may not look like anything is going on or happening, but I can think of right now on Maryland Parkway, right across from Boulevard Mall, right? There's an empty strip mall, but within that strip mall, there's a laundromat. And people around those communities use and need to use that laundromat. And I'm just thinking, like, in this situation, you would completely demolish that to build, whatever it is. Where will those people then go to do their laundry? So I appreciate the presentation. I do just want to note that it is a concern of mine, is making sure that our communities that we're not just saying this, right? That they actually have access to come back and be part of this new part of the community in which you're saying, right? We talk about affordable housing. What does that really mean, right? We knock a strip mall down, right? There's a picture of the Spring Mountain development in here. Do you guys know, just off the top of your head, how much it is to rent in that development? It is over $1,500, right? And so people who lived there prior are not going to be able to afford that. And so I just wanted to put on the record that that is a concern of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Thomas.
And thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. My question actually has to do with crime. When did, in your master plan or in your, when you were talking about this project, did you consider the crime rate? Because we know that in some of these corridors that you are putting new development in are high crime anyway. So what are we going to do when, is there taxes going to the police force to, increase that? What's going on here?
Marco Valletta, for the record, through the chair to you. When we do have these opportunities for redevelopment, we're often trying to look at ways to ameliorate those situations where there might be crime concerns. And oftentimes with new development comes those opportunities to provide some revitalization. And we've seen examples of that throughout the country, frankly, having, something that's vacant land or areas that might be high crime, having economic life and vitality injected into those communities with something new. And with principles like, having more eyes on the street, having people see what's going on in the public space immediately around the buildings and the projects, that often helps reduce crime. You have more activity, you have more life, you have more of that activity going on that helps reduce it. Right now, the way the property taxes work, that money goes to services like police, to Metro, to an individual city's or county's police department. That would continue on in this bill as written. Yeah.
Thank you. And members, any additional, Assemblyman DeLong, and then Assemblyman Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair. Help me clarify something in my mind. This bill is not proposing any specific projects. It's just enabling legislation, correct? Thank you.
For the record, Kelly Crumpton, representing the City of Las Vegas. That is correct.
Assemblyman Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair. My question is actually more for Mr. Killian. Perhaps he can enlighten me. Is there a definition of the word municipality in NRS? And I'll explain why I'm asking while he's looking. Because during the presentation, you're talking about how cities and also the county could take advantage of this. But when I see the word municipality, I think of incorporated city. That's what is in my head. And because in the Las Vegas Valley, we know that Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Clark County, Henderson are all so intertwined. I want to make sure that if we do pass this legislation, the counties can also, by statute, do this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. So for the purpose of this chapter of NRS, Chapter 278C, NRS 278C 070 defines municipality to include any city or county. So for the purpose of this set of language in NRS, it's either a city or county.
My question has been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I just want it to be very clear. So we're not we're not increasing the tax, but local governments could increase that tax. And I guess this is my concern, because I see that there's language in here to prevent them from increasing the tax while there is the ordinance. But there is nothing to prevent local governments from increasing the tax and then putting the ordinance, right? And so you could increase the tax this week, and then next week we're gonna go ahead and establish the ordinance, and that probably would be the plan of those electeds at that time. So that is a concern for me. Additionally, we're not actually expanding the amount of money that's allocated and distributed within property taxes. We're not saying that we're increasing the amount of money. We're just saying that we're cutting the funds that would otherwise go to these other places, right? And so my understanding or my assumption would be that we have the tax and that tax is already being used for projects. Is that correct? Or do we just have tons of extra revenue just lying around?
Madam Chair, Randy Robinson, City of Las Vegas. I'm not completely tracking with your thought process there, but there is an existing property tax rate. The revenue collected from that tax rate is distributed to a variety of different taxing entities that Mr. Smith mentioned, schools, police services, library districts, those sorts of things. So that revenue is, yes, already being distributed.
And I guess I just take issue with like local governments coming to us and having other legislation because they're so concerned about unfunded mandates, but you all are saying we have all this extra money that we could then use to do all these extra projects. We just need you guys to give us special power so that we can do it. And so I do have some issues because clearly there are funds, like the funds are probably being used for something, right? Like if we're gonna take a portion of it that would otherwise go to these other entities, I imagine that there are projects and that there are things that local governments are already using these funds for. Like I don't believe that the county has tons of extra money because that's not the conversations that they've had with me this cycle. I don't think that cities have tons of extra funds because that's not the conversation they've had with me this cycle. So it seems that like the powers that the cities have, I mean, you've mentioned that there are already projects that like there have already been other development projects. It doesn't seem to me that there's like, it would just give municipalities a little bit, I think you're taking money from a pie, but we're not making that pie any bigger. The pie's already the same size.
May I attempt to respond, Madam Chair? For the record, Randy Robinson. So the way that the tax increment financing works is, as I mentioned in the bill, the base stays the same. So whatever those entities are getting today, they'll get tomorrow and forever. As that assessed valuation grows currently on vacant land, on empty strip malls, or undeveloped land, or whatever it is, that assessed valuation grows. So let's say this year you get $100, next year you get $105. It's that $5 that we're talking about that we reinvest to essentially grow that base so that over time that base grows so that the money that I suppose that other agencies may be foregoing is made up in the end because there's more development, better development, and so assessed valuation the base grows.
And I understand that, but I guess what I imagine is going to happen is in 10 years, the local governments are going to be coming back and saying, we haven't had any money for inflation. We're really struggling. We haven't seen this, and because we haven't been able to get like these extra funds that are used for now these other projects. And so I'm concerned that that in 10, 15 years, we're going to continue, local governments are going to come back and they're going to say, we just don't have the funds to fulfill these other responsibilities that we have. Inflation is going to continue to rise. The cost of living is going to continue to rise. And whatever you all have right now is the only funds you're going to have right now because you're not going to be able to see an increase from that property, that property tax in your, that's going towards anything except for these projects. Assemblyman DeLong. Thank you. Is there any other questions from members? All right, at this time, we'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support of AB 10.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nick Saccone, City of Reno for the record. Although I can't speak to whether or not we would use these tools, we appreciate the additional financing for transit-oriented development and affordable housing. That's been a major priority for our City Council. So we thank the bill sponsor and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Stephen Wood, representing the Nevada League of Cities and Municipalities. And I just want to say that we support the measure. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Torres. Happy, hardworking, and tartan-clad members of the Government Affairs Committee. For the record, David Cherry with the City of Henderson. We're here in support of AB 10 because this innovative approach will give local governments a new tool to invest in our communities through the use of transportation and housing zones, which we could see using to help reinvigorate the Boulder Highway Corridor, and in fast-growing West Henderson, home to the practice facilities for the hard-hitting Las Vegas Raiders and the NBA World Champion Las Vegas Aces. Henderson is a strong proponent of giving our residents a variety of housing and transportation choices, and that includes using transit-oriented development. So we greatly appreciate that this bill is permissive and gives local jurisdictions the ability to make determinations on how and where we would choose to use the tools AB 10 would grant to best meet the individual needs of Henderson families and the businesses of our community. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in Carson City wishing to testify in support of AB 10? I do not see any BPS. Is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 10?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in support of AB 10, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair. Caller with the last 3 digits, 735. You're unmuted on our end. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Eileen Pastor on behalf of the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. The RTC is in support of AB 10 because of our continued commitment to providing accessible and affordable transit to our community. Transportation and reinvestment zones would allow the RTC to partner with local governments to increase economic development, quality of life, affordable housing, and transportation options while also decreasing greenhouse gas emissions and urban sprawl. Transportation and housing reinvestment zones are another tool to help increase prosperity for our local communities, and we urge the committee's support.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to provide support testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 10.
Good morning, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, members of the committee. Joanna Jacob, Government Affairs Manager on behalf of Clark County. I'm here in opposition to the original bill, but I want to recognize the efforts that the City of Las Vegas has expended on really all of their departments, their government relations team, to get us to a better place on this bill. There's been a lot of discussion. Thank you, Assemblyman Carter, and thank you for the committee's questions about property tax collections and the challenges that we face. They are collected by the county, and they fund not only education and services, but also indigent care, and depending on where you live in the county. So we recognize the challenges that the city has and their goals and their master plan goals, and we've been working with them for several months on this bill. We got to an agreement just this morning, I guess is what I would say, which is why thank you to Mr. Robinson for recognizing that I will have a friendly amendment from Clark County. We did file it with Ms. Bishop and the committee secretary, and it will be posted to Nellis today. We'll continue to work with the City of Las Vegas on this. Some of the things that were really important for us were the guardrails that have been put into the amendment, specifically about the interlocal agreement requirement, and that there shall be no tax increment revenue generated from the zone of one municipality to be transferred without that agreement. And so that really was one of the things that we were asking for. So we appreciate the city's effort on that. Our amendment is really just to define the base year so that we can set and define the point of measurement that we that we measure from when we're measuring the tax increment so that we can budget for it. This also does fund police services and really critical services region-wide, so the county will need to work with the city on all of those demands. So we appreciate the work, though, of the city. We'll get to a point of neutral. The city's amendment plus ours, as we bring this to work session, we'll probably get the county to neutral. Mr. Guthrow from NACO was sitting with me. Really, we've been working with NACO and all counties on this, so I will just put him on the record too, that we'll continue to work with the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobs, if it's all right, Vice Chair Duran does have a quick question.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. Just with this plan in place, or this amendments, would this still have any cuts to or impact our police or fire or emergency services that we currently have?
Thank you, Vice Chair Duran. It really depends on where you live. As we've discussed, the city and the county do fund Metro together. A portion of that property tax increment, it allows us to reduce if the property tax grows, it reduces our proportionate contribution of the city and the county. So no, I don't believe so. And I think I believe that the city really talked about this. Some of these, we'll just have to work with them, and we will work with them because through the interlocal to account for that. I don't see an immediate impact right now because, as you noted, a lot of this is still speculative. But the requirement for the interlocal agreement certainly will be probably one of the points that will be discussed, I guess, on the impact if we have overlay between the municipalities. As Assemblyman Hibbets noted, we're very intertwined in Southern Nevada. So I hope that answers your question. Not immediately, but we will be working with the city on this, of course, as they move forward with these plans.
Thank you. I think that's the only question we had. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in opposition here in Carson City? I don't see any. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 10?
Chair, the line is open and working with there are no callers choosing to provide opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 10? I don't see any here in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 10?
Chair, the line is open and working. There are no callers choosing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and invite the bill sponsors for any closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate the time for the bill hearing and look forward to working with any members who have additional questions as we move through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 10. And we'll go ahead and move on to today's work session. Today, as a reminder, we will conduct the work session, take action on a measure that the committee has heard in previous meetings. It is not customary for the committee to take testimony or otherwise rehear the bill during the work session. However, today, I expect there will be a couple questions on the final amendment, and I may invite a witness to come forward for clarification of questions during the consideration of a measure. We will go ahead and begin with the only one we have up for work session today, AB 258.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jennifer Rudy, Committee Policy Analyst. As LCB staff, I don't advocate for or oppose legislation. I'm just here to walk you through the work session document. Assembly Bill 258 is a bill by Assemblywoman Backus, who's here in the audience. Assembly Bill 258 requires, with certain exceptions, a governmental agency to keep confidential any personal information in the records of the governmental agency that identifies a person as a donor, member, or volunteer of a nonprofit organization. The bill further prohibits, with certain exceptions, a governmental agency from requiring that any person or nonprofit organization provide the agency with personal information that identifies a donor, member, or volunteer of a nonprofit organization, releasing, publicizing, or otherwise publicly disclosing personal information that identifies a donor, member, or volunteer of a nonprofit organization, or 3, requesting or requiring a current or prospective contractor or grantee to provide a list of nonprofit organizations to which the contractor or grantee has provided support. Any violation of these provisions, as written in the bill as introduced, by a governmental agency or an officer or employee of a governmental agency may be punishable through a civil action with certain damages. Any officer or employee of a governmental agency who knowingly and willfully violates these provisions is guilty of a misdemeanor. The Secretary of State, in carrying out certain requirements of existing laws, prohibited from collecting or disclosing any information that directly identifies a person as a donor of financial support to a nonprofit organization. And there is an attached amendment that tightens up quite a bit of the language and adds certain sections, and it sounds like there will be more conversation on the amendment. Thank you.
Members, any questions? All right, I'll begin with Assemblyman Gonzalez.
Sorry. I was like, I just wanted to clarify for the record that you would only receive damages if that you could prove the damages to the party.
Legal will go ahead and help us out with that.
Having a microphone issue too. Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher, Killian, Committee Council. So the bill provides several forms of remedy for violations of the bill's provisions, including injunctive relief, attorney's fees, and certain amounts of damages. Those are all discretionary rather than statutorily required damages. So when a court is considering a violation of this section, the court would have the authority to order damages, but since damages are not required, the court in its discretion would have to determine whether there had been any injury caused as a result of the actions, and it would likely award damages accordingly. So there would not be statutorily required damages awarded for every violation, but the court would exercise its discretion to determine whether an injury had occurred that necessitated an award of damages.
Thank you. And I know that clarifies some of the concerns that I had heard from the cities too, that anybody would be able to get those damages. So just to be very clear for that record, that there would be, not anybody would be able to receive those damages. You would have to prove harm. Assemblyman Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm going to bother Mr. Killian again. So I just want to be clear that let's say somebody inadvertently releases something that they may or may not have supposed to. The government agency that they work for, whether it's the state or a political subdivision, is responsible for their legal defense and representation. Is that not correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher, Killian, Committee Council, and at the risk of channeling my inner Disney villain and lulling the committee to sleep, touch on English common law for a minute. The concept of sovereign immunity has its origin in English common law and the idea that the king can do no wrong. The state, as the sovereign, is only liable for damages to the extent that the state allows damages to itself. This concept of sovereign immunity in Nevada is covered by NRS 41031 through 41037. Generally, the state allows damages in suits against the state, but it retains sovereign immunity and prohibits damages against individual employees of the state and instead makes their employer liable for their damages, so long as the employee has exercised due care in performing their duties on the basis of any act or omission or failure to exercise their duties. So in general, an employee of the state or an employee of a political subdivision would not be liable, and the state agency or political subdivision itself would be responsible for defense. The exception to that, both in Chapter 41 of NRS and in this bill, is if an officer or an employee of an agency knowingly and willfully violates the provisions of this bill. If an employee acts to that standard, then the bill does provide for criminal liability for the employee, and the waiver of sovereign immunity for the state would not protect them if they act knowingly and willfully to violate the provisions of the bill.
Thank you, and I believe that was actually a concern of several of our committee members. And so, in talking to the bill sponsor, she noted, and I know she's present too, that she would be all right with us accepting putting in an amendment to remove the misdemeanor. So that would be Section 2 Sub 5, so that there would be no criminal liability. Can I just get confirmation from the bill sponsor that that would be all right?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Shay Backus for the record. As the bill sponsor of AB 258, I'm in agreement to remove the provision pertaining to the misdemeanor for the employee who would willfully disclose such information.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. At this time, is there any additional questions for council? I do want to note that I think several of those questions cleared up some of the concerns that local governments had expressed to me. And given I think most of us, like a one-pager on that, like I think a lot of those concerns had to do with specifically employees being sued. I think other concerns had to do with employees having to pay for some of those damages and then having the criminal charges. So I do think that that kind of, with all those amendments, I think we're able to address several of those concerns. And I do want to acknowledge and thank the Assemblywoman for working with so many stakeholders. That's why we have an amendment that is quite long, but it's because so much collaboration went into making this bill happen. So at this time, we'll entertain a motion to amend and to pass with the proposed amendment attached by Assemblywoman Backus while simultaneously removing Section 2, Sub 5. Assemblywoman Gonzalez has made the motion. Do I have a second? And I have a second from Vice Chair Duran. Any discussion? All in favor? Yes, Assemblywoman DeLong.
I'm planning on voting yes, but I want to reserve my rights till I actually see the text since there's so many changes. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Assemblywoman Gurr.
Ditto.
And Assemblywoman MacArthur, I'm sorry, could you use the mic? I didn't hear you.
Ditto.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure you got that on the record. All right. Any additional comments or concerns? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. This motion does carry. And I will go ahead and assign the floor statement to Assemblywoman Backus. All right. That does conclude our work session for today. So we will go ahead and move on to public comment. Is there anyone wishing to testify in public comment here in Carson City? I did not see anyone. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in public comment?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
All right. Members, any comments or remarks before we close? Oh, someone MacArthur almost had something to say, but not quite. Just a reminder to the committee, today's Thursday, right? Yeah. So tomorrow we will not be meeting. And we will not be meeting on Monday. So I hope you all have a good holiday weekend. Next week, though, we will have several bill hearings and another work session, so be ready for that. I'll make sure that I reach out to you all so you know what bills are kind of coming up in the next week. But at this time, the meeting is adjourned.